The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hello, my name's James Wrigley. I'm a financial advisor and one of the principals of Melbourne-based financial planning firm First Financial. I've been a long-term listener and contributor to the Ensemble group and podcast, picking up some amazing nuggets of gold over the years. And through this podcast and the people that I'm able to speak to and interview, hopefully I can continue to deliver some of those nuggets of gold to you.
IntelliFlow is on a mission to give more people access to financial advice. Their technology, IntelliFlow Office, powers and streamlines the advisory experience for over 30,000 financial advisors worldwide, making an impact at every stage of the advice process, including practice management, revenue management, cash flow modelling, client portals, and more. IntelliFlow Office helps advisors manage all their client and provider data within a single integrated ecosystem that just works. Discover IntelliFlow for yourself by visiting intelliflow.com.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm James Wrigley and I've got the pleasure of chatting again with Jonathan Mannion, Sandringham Wealth. Jono, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Really appreciate you and I were chatting a few weeks back now. It was kind of pre-30 June. You were generous with your time around some SOA things that I was trying to work on here. And anyway, we got to talking about Ensemble, and you mentioned finding your community, and I thought, we need to get you on. So thank you for joining me. Tell us a bit. We were just chatting about your office, and we might slice the audio to kind of bring that part back in again. I was so for anyone that doesn't follow Jono, you're active on TikTok and a few other places. That's how I've gotten to know you. I was just commenting to say that your office looks like, I could have sworn you're in the spare room at home. The setup, the background for your videos, we're chatting here on a video platform anyway. But yeah, talk us through your office setup. That's impressive.
So basically, when the business started, I started renting up a space. I was renting from my accountant, and it was good. But you don't really get that sense of ownership, and you're only ever renting somebody else's space. And as the business has grown and then we want to expand, I wanted to plant the flag in the ground and say, right, this is where we operate for the next 20 years. And there's a very particular way that I would like things to be set up. I want an experience when you walk in the door. I want it to look and feel and smell a certain way. And the office, sometimes when you're in a sort of sterile meeting room, it can feel like a sterile meeting room. But here, I've got it set up to a large degree the way that I want it to look and feel and smell. It's never sort of complete, but it's well on the way. But no, I can't work at home. I think I learned that during COVID very clearly.
Yep. So do you own the office space? You're not renting it anymore?
Yes. Yep. So
you're on
it. Sits in the super fund. So it's part of what's in super fund.
Yeah.
And I feel a TikTok video coming on.
That's like that would do really well. The LRBA buying your office space or your warehouse, if you've got a factory type business, I do get a lot of inquiries from those types of people via TikTok. But yeah, talking of your own experience in doing it yourself would be interesting.
It was really interesting. So it's part of the advice that we provide, because I do just for whatever reason have quite a few business owners. And providing the advice is very different from going through it yourself. There were times where I wanted to sit in a corner and just rock. And from an advice point of view, because you're on the other side of the table, these are the things that need to happen. Here's the advice. Let's go. When you're actually dealing with the lender and the broker and the lawyers and trying to coordinate the project, manage the whole thing, much more complicated.
Yeah, and actually, there's value in that, to talking through clients through it, to say, I've been through the process as well. This is what worked well. This is what didn't work well. Because I myself have advised plenty of clients on doing it. Have I done it myself? No, I haven't done it myself. So there's a lot to be said for going through the process yourself.
It's not, to be honest, it's not one that I'd want to go through again.
Yeah.
Would really have to, there was a real motivator from the business point of view. From a numbers point of view, it certainly stacked up, but it's not one of those things that I would go through happily again.
Yeah. So tell us about Sandringham Wealth. To be honest, when I first came across you online, I thought you had a financial planning business in Sandringham down here in Victoria, but I've from some of the other videos that you put up, I've learned you're not in Victoria. Where are you?
No, so we used to live in Melbourne, but we got to the point where we looked at it and said, right, if we wanted to move out of Richmond and into, say, Hawthorn, it was taking on another $1 million worth of debt. And you can do it, but there's a cost that comes to that in terms of your time and focus and family stuff. And we moved from Melbourne up to Newcastle, lifestyle, bit close to the ocean because that's my happy place. And Sandringham was a sort of a nod to mum and dad. That was Sandringham Place was the first home that we lived in, and it was just such a beautiful home as a kid. I think as an adult you look back and go, maybe less so, but as a kid it was, like this fantastic place. So it was in Sandringham Place, and that was the sort of the nod to mum and dad. So Sandringham Wealth.
There you go. Love it. Great story. What does the business look like at the moment? Tell us a bit of what's the kind of a bit of the backstory? Because you were in the bank previously.
I did. I started off. We moved to Australia 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I did, I spent 8 years in the UK, and sort of towards the end it was sort of prime brokerage and stock lending, and that stuff just didn't exist in Melbourne. And I really wasn't convinced that I wanted to deal with institutional clients, and then sort of found a really small niche financial advice, stock lending and investment bank all in one. And that was sort of where I got a foot in the door, and then moved through a practice that was eventually acquired by AMP. That wasn't necessarily going to work for me. So I went through the banks.
Yep.
And then, as the world of banks were exiting, I looked at it and went, it's one of those watershed moments where I go, right, do I want to take the plunge and go and set up my own practice, or am I comfortable being an employee forever? And chose to start my own practice. So I didn't take my book. I basically started day one back at square one with $100 worth of revenue, which is scary when you've got, a family to support and you got to put runs on the board. It's, it's intimidating stuff, but that's sort of where the business started. And then, now it's me, still sole advisor, 2 team members, parent planner / associate advisor and administrator. And it's just the 3 of us.
Yeah, right. And so did you start the business when you were in Melbourne and then move to Newcastle, or did you start it when you were in Newcastle? Like, what was the timing around moving as well?
So I moved from one of the banks when I was in Melbourne, left there, started a fresh with a different bank up here, did 5 years in that bank, and then everything sort of was on the way to winding up. And then, so we've been operating now for 4.5 years in the business.
Yep. And going well for you? Like, what does your client base look like? Who are you working with? Who are your typical clients?
So from a client point of view, it's high income, time poor professionals, and traditionally my clients are probably smarter than me. They probably earn more money than me. It's a really sort of smart, switched on client base. I love working with people like that. We've probably only got 70 odd ongoing clients at the moment, pretty close to 70. Yeah. And we're still saving on a couple more, but it's not, we're probably going to get to a point where I say, right, well, we're now sort of near or at capacity. And then, it's, I guess, looking after the clients that we've got.
Yeah. And so no plans to take on another advisor or someone that's in your team for them to go through. You keep it as the solo advisor.
It's really interesting. It's trying to work out: do I want to build a business, or do I just love being an advisor?
Yeah,
and like I love both parts of it, but I'm not 100% convinced that I want to grow and expand I saw some really interesting research. Michael Kitsis had done a thing about, and they tracked advisor happiness, and they said, advisor happiness dips until you get more support, and then it rises, and then it dips again when you take on more advisors, but your revenue grows, and it was this constant sort of up and down. And I'm getting to the point where that's the sort of the question in my mind. I've actually got she would be the absolute ideal person to bring into the business. But it's, whether or not I do it and then when, because particularly the social media, the way that you and I caught up was via TikTok. That stuff is really starting to take off now.
Yeah.
And there probably is the capacity to take on another advisor. It's just whether or not I've got the strength.
Yeah. And look, it's the classic financial planning question. Is it like, well, what do you actually want to do? Sure, you can take on another advisor and grow a business if you want to, or you can keep, we'll have your 70, 80 clients or whatever number you decide is enough, and be comfortable and earn your revenue and happy days. It's like, you can do whatever you want. It's your business. And the financial planning question is, what do you want to do?
Yeah, and that's the trick. That's the bit that I'm still weighing up at the moment. I'm still leaning towards just being solo advisor. And it's really interesting because I listen to a lot of the podcast episodes, and sort of providing sentiment seems to be that a solo advisor, one-man band isn't sustainable. And I reckon it is. Very, very comfortably so. I think you've got to have the right sort of setup, and you've got to watch, the cost element. But and I see this as sustainable long term. It's just whether or not I take somebody else on and grow.
Yeah. And what type of support do you get into the business from others? Aside from, it sounds like there's a couple of direct employees with you.
Yeah.
But what other services from your licensee or anywhere else? What other services are you taking on so that you can kind of confidently say, like you've just said, that you're happy being a solo advisor and you think it's sustainable?
I think it's probably the network, and having that really good, strong network to say, right, the bit that I'm really good on is this bit.
Yep.
I'm not going to start going too far down the estate planning path, because I've got a guy that I can refer to who is an absolute guru. It's literally all he does. You want to do mortgage broking, I can give you some rough idea as to what to expect, but really, this is the guy that you need to speak to. There are a couple of brokers that I refer to. They've got very set niches, both really specialised. There's the accountant. So it's sort of having that network that I can refer out to say, I'm literally going to specialise and sort of swim between the flags, and everything else can go out to experts if that's needed.
Yeah. What about from a business operations perspective? Like, clients have got to pay you somehow, and like, how do you have a bookkeeper? Does your licensee help with that? Like, what do you do on that front?
So that sort of stuff in terms of the payment, everything's collected by the licensee.
Yep.
I don't have a bookkeeper because from a revenue point of view coming in, there is a fortnightly payment, so that bit's done. I keep an eye on, if any direct debits fail, it's, us on the phone going, hey, just let us know when we can re-debit, because it hasn't gone through. A lot of stuff runs through the investment accounts, because I don't want to have that conversation with the accountant going, you haven't worded your summary, this is the advice and this is the summary of costs. So when we can, we just run it through an investment account. Across Super or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then in terms of payments out, there's not an enormous amount. A lot of the stuff's recurring. For the tech side of things, I've got the rules set up in Xero. A lot of that stuff is done. I think the thing that I probably have to put a rule in for is, buying milk and coffee for the others, and that's pretty well it.
Yeah.
So in the bookkeeping side of things, it's pretty skinny.
Yeah. Nice. It's good to hear, because as you said, there is a lot. I've spoken to a number of advisors, and just listening to other episodes. Yeah, there's a lot in that space where they're kind of going, well, is being a solo advisor, having my little business, a couple of employees, is that sustainable or not? And I agree with your sentiment that there seems to be this sentiment out there that possibly it's not sustainable, and there needs to be a bit of safety in numbers coming together.
I think the one thing that I have we're in the middle of putting in place at the moment is another guy who runs his own business. And I approached him and said, listen, I want to put a buy-sell agreement in place because I want certainty that if my wife is convinced that I'm going to get eaten by a shark, I'm going to drown, and there's a scenario where, all of it happens together. But, I said to him, I want the certainty of knowing that she's not going to have to worry about, getting stuck into the business and trying to get it ready for sale. So he's been within the same licensee. I've known him for years, and I said, look, if I go, I want to know the business is now yours, and that's your problem. But we've got the funding in place that it literally is a tick and flick exercise.
Fantastic. Great way of dealing with it.
Yeah, and I look up, because the conversation started, you went, well, your business is bigger than mine, what's in it for you? And I said, what's in it for me is the fact that I've effectively sold my business. My business now is your problem. And in the same way, your wife doesn't want to get, no, his wife, but she doesn't want to get involved in selling the business. He literally wants to be able to go, there it is, it's gone. She's got the value of the business extracted already. And then his business becomes my problem.
Yeah.
And I think, for the two of us, that hiking solves the sole operator sort of issue.
Yeah. And from your social media, if you're out in your canoe at 4 a.m. catching fish or something like you seem to be on the weekend, I can understand your wife's worry about sharks going to get you.
There've been a couple of moments where I've just second guess myself, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, nice. So I wanted to pick up a bit on the conversation that we had last time when we were talking. Just said you kind of came out of the bank, and what I remember you saying, whether they were the exact words that you said, you kind of felt a little bit lost kind of on your own until you stumbled across Ensemble, and you commented, so it stuck with me. You said you felt like you'd found your people, and you said you're consuming a lot of the podcasts, and you've picked up little bits and pieces from different people of explaining how they're using different elements. Can you walk us through, I guess, firstly how you've kind of built your service? Like, what do you someone reaches out to you, like we're getting a bit of, we all like to geek out on the tech that we're using. Like, walk us through the process of someone reaches out to you, you contact them somehow, making file notes, delivering advice. Can you talk us through how that works and the different pieces that you're using in that process to make your life a whole lot easier, so you're not bashing up file notes and things?
So there's a couple of things. So I thought my process was pretty good. I was very comfortable, and it's sort of been developed in different iterations for 10 or 12 years. And I got to the point where I went, I probably need to grow the business a little bit quicker, and that's why I engaged a coach. So Steve Selvier had been on here, and I went to him going, right, I don't know where my next client's coming from, and this is the problem that I want you to help him solve. The stuff that he solved for me in part was that, but probably, a bigger piece that he helped me solve was what does that process look like?
Yeah.
And what, how do you look after the people that you want to, but also respectfully say to somebody, you're not going to sit here. And they will good advice to you, but it's not going to be me. And I went and going, if I'm going to pay him what he's charging, I've got to go in with a really open mind. And I've still got to try absolutely everything that he tells me to do. I might not like it. It might feel uncomfortable. I might think I know better. But you got to go in with that open mindset of, I'm going to do absolutely everything that I'm paying him to guide me through. His process is phenomenal. Now, my conversion ratio before going to Steve, I was pretty happy with it. The conversion ratio afterwards is unbelievable, because his process of sort of pre-assessment is really, really strong. So, things like the TikTok or, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it is, it's got a link in the bio to book a 15-minute chat. But in order to book your 15-minute chat, I want mobile, email, and you've got to answer 5 questions. Now, if somebody says, I'm not working full-time, I don't have enough spare cash flow, I need you to help me remortgage something, that's a really quick response. Hey, I might even pre-record them a video. and say, it's not really my thing. I can see what you try to do. Here is, if you want an intro to somebody who looks or feels like this, here we go. It cost me 5 minutes instead of, sounds cold, but wasting an hour and a half for somebody that is just not going to fit my business.
Yeah.
And that screening process is really, is really good, really strong. And then, if we get on that call, I've already got sort of a predefined process to go through and weed out the people that I don't think are going to be a good fit.
And even that initial screening where someone clicks on a link to book a 15-minute phone call, are you using Calendly for that? Like, what is it Calendly using? And then you've got Acuity. Okay.
I mean, you could equally use Calendly, but I use Acuity.
And then so then you've built a template. You built a workflow, whatever you want to call it, in there that prompts them name, email address, phone number, answer these 5 questions.
Correct.
And then I guess that itself is going to filter out some people as well, because I'm not answering these 5 questions, forget about it, and they disappear.
Absolutely.
Right. They're not. Okay. So there's the Acuity part there. So you have this phone call with someone, you'd say, yep, I agree, I can help you in some way, shape or form.
Yep.
What happens next? What happens after that?
So after we book something, so if they, if they say, oh, I'm not sure what my partner's diary looks like, I'll send them the direct scheduling link and go, when you found a time for both of you, click in the link. I've got a and this is again Steve's sort of process. I've got a template, and it'll sound really silly, but it's saved as a signature in Outlook. So instead of having to retype the damn thing, and I've got a little intro video, a little bit about us. This is how we operate, who we look after, how you might feel. Here's some questions. All of that stuff is literally, I click on the initial meet and greet signature. It all adds in. It's got the video, and away we go. So that's that bit booked in. And then we start to go through the advice process. So the first meeting, it's 90 minutes, and there's literally, it's sort of Steve's process here. It goes through, all of the stuff that we need to, and it does effectively, if you think about it, like, is the sales piece. It's not, I'm not a big one for selling stuff. I'm not a salesy sort of guy, but it takes you through that process and go, we're going to start here. These are the things that we're going to do. Here's where you're stuck. This is how we're going to do it. This is how it operates. This is the fee structure. This is what's in it for you. Sign here, and we'll book the second meeting. And it runs almost exactly to 90 minutes every single time. And it's such a good process, because it brings out all of the stuff that people are worried about, and all of the things that we can do as advisors, and it shows these are the things that we can do. It matches them up. I run a flat fee model only. There's no commissions, and it literally, I talk them through all of that stuff.
Yep.
It pretty well answers everything they can possibly want. And if you're not sure at the end of 90 minutes, then that's okay. Might be that you need to find someone else, find someone different. And, we had that conversation right up front to say to people, I want you to be really critical of me. I want you to judge me really harshly on two different sort of facets. One is the personal, the other is profession. So if you think that I'm a really smart guy that'll make your skin crawl, it's not going to work. Yeah. And if you think I'm a lovely guy but not particularly switched on, again, it's not going to work. And because I want them to think about this as advice, but it's the relationship bit, and in the two have to match up.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So in anticipation of that first 90-minute meeting that you're having with them, are you asking them to share any further information with you beforehand other than what you've gathered in the phone call?
No. So that first meeting is, tell me what your pain points are. This is the things that we can do. This is what we can do to solve those problems. We're going to get you to here. At that stage, I probably don't even know, asset position. We get an idea of sort of the income and assets may come out in that conversation, but we get to the point where I've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. And then I'll say, right, this is the fee structure. Sign here to say that you engage in my services to write the SOA. And then we'll book a second meeting. And then I'll say to them, at the end of this meeting, I'm going to send you a link. And I want you to click on the link, and I want you to put all of the details in. I I'm not a patient guy with that. So, what is your name and your date of birth? I don't have the time and patience to do that. So I get the clients to fill out the fact find themselves. They do the risk profile themselves. And in that second meeting, we'll go through that together and go, right, let's just sense check the stuff that you've used. So I use Advice Revolution, and then the sort of the CRM piece is X-Plan. And there's a single way sort of push and pull. So the front end of X-Plan, the last time I looked at it, wasn't something that I want my clients exposed to.
Looked at it, it's some the same, yeah.
Yeah, so I went with Advice Revolution. It looks and feels pretty good. It allows that push, and I don't have to fill out a fact find. The risk profile was a real game changer for me, because if I have to ask that set of questions again, I think, the frustration, it's wasted time. I want them to answer those questions so that I don't steal or guide. And then once we've got the indicative new rent growth profile or whatever it is, then that's the bit in the discussion that I really want to have. So you've indicatively come out as this. I've got a slide deck that I run through and go, this is what it actually means. This is what the emoji of investing. This is the difference between a growth and a high growth and a growth and a balanced. The good times, the bad times, how does that feel? And then we start to get, for me, that's a much better discussion than, the tick box exercise.
Yeah, I was going to ask how do you sense check that risk profiling exercise? Because you can, I do it in ask every client the same kind of set of questions as part of a meeting. I've just done one earlier today. And yeah, you're kind of getting into I'm asking different people, but the same questions over and over and over. You're sense checking that along the way, and it's interested to see how you deal with that at the end. So someone answers a set of questions, but then you're circling back to say, okay, this is what it actually means. The way that you've answered these questions, this is what it actually means for you.
Yep.
And then you put your advisor hat on, you can kind of gauge whether you think it's a true reflection of what they're actually up to and where they're at.
Exactly. So if I asked you those questions, I can steer your answers in the way I ask them.
Yep.
And I can put more emphasis on the answer that I think is most relevant. And I want to remove my sort of inherent bias from that thing. Once they've answered the question, then we can have the discussion and we can do the sense check. And for me, I think there's a lot more value in sense checking it and saying, look, you've said this, but we're also trying to shoot for the stars, but you want to be ultra conservative. Let's have a look at that. And sort of, I've got the Vanguard charts and there's a whole bunch of charts that I've collected over time, and then I'll talk them through that stuff. But if I had to ask those questions around the risk profile, it is, it's painful.
And that's Advice Revolution as well, the risk profiling's through Advice Revolution, or is that something separate?
So you can actually, I preloaded. So the loans is and the risk profile questions, and AR they literally just loaded that into it.
So you have this second meeting with them, you're sense checking everything. At the end of that meeting, they're kind of agreeing, yes, this is us, this is what I'm expecting of you. And then you go away and you do your statement of advice. Is that what happens after the second meeting?
Yeah, so actually I've left out a point. So at the end of the first meeting, they did the fact find, they did the risk profile, and then we set them a series of tasks. And the tasks are, I want you to sign the research authority. I want you to drag and drop that into the portal. I want you to I'll take ID in the meeting, but I want you to take a copy of your super statement, drag and drop that in there. Here's the insurance pre-assessment form. Don't skip that one. Every answer needs to be marked down. Add that to the portal as well. So by the time we got there, I already have, they filled out the fact finder risk profile. I've got the research authority. So quite often we'll have the research authority, uploaded, and sometimes we'll even have the super stuff, the research done. Mm. And part of that, when we come to the second meeting, a lot of it is just a sense check, and I may even have some thoughts on strategy. When I do the super, it sounds silly, but you've seen the horrendous TV show, The Voice.
Yeah.
So they like the blind auditions. What we do is I'll put enough for X-Plan and I'll say, right, here are 3 super funds. This one's really low cost and it's got low features. This one's quite expensive and also has low features. And this one is high features and high cost. Let's have a look at the cost, the features, and then the performance. You pick a fund. I don't really mind which one. It's very rare that somebody's going to pick the industry fund that they're with that is high cost and low functionality. They either go with the really low cost index option or the full wrap, offering.
Yep.
But from an advice point of view, when you take the labels off, it takes away their, bias towards one fund or another, one style of fund. And then, if from a file loading point of view, that's a really easy conversation. And when I play that back to them at presentation stage, do you remember when you picked this fund? Well, now, this is the name of the fund. It is Super Fund X. You already know what the performance has been roughly, but let's go through the makeup of the portfolio and the rest of it. From a compliance point of view, it's interesting because they got picked up at audit, and the bloke started laughing. He's like, "The voice." He goes, "That's a really bad show." But in the way that you position, you said, it's actually really interesting to watch somebody go through that process or read through your file notes on that process and how they've selected it.
I'm interested in the file note part. Like, is that a recorded meeting you're having with the client? Are you recording what they're saying, or are you just making file notes after the fact?
No, I just make file notes after. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of recording meetings because I tend to, the way that I view advice, a lot of it is about, head versus heart. But I would say at least once a month, somebody's in tears and laughs because I want to talk about what keeps you awake at night, and what scares you, and what gets you really excited. And sometimes it's that relief of, I'm going to be okay. And I've been holding it in so tight that, somebody will burst to tears, or somebody last week is going through this enormous change in their life. And I said, talk me through it. I don't want to record that stuff.
Yeah.
It feels quite invasive. And I don't want that. But from a file note point of view, I'm always looking for efficiencies in the business, bottlenecks, and anything that I dislike. So any negatives. And, for me, file notes was I just don't like doing them. And I looked at them and went, right, I am procrastinating here because I don't want to type them out. So I went, right, we'll get rid of that. And I've probably I use Dragon Speak, and I have been for probably 14 to 15 years now. But
Yeah, right.
For me, that was a way of saying I don't have to type my file notes. And then I found that I was delaying doing Dragon Speak, and from a behavioral point of view, why? And I went, it's because I've had to use a USB headset, and I've got to take it out of its case and then plug it in and unfold it and put it on, and the headset's uncomfortable. And that sounds silly, but I could see and notice that that's where a delay went. And I went, right, I've now got an external mic that sits on the desk. You plug it in and you talk. So from that point of view, it's trying to cut out anything that's going to delay advice getting, underway.
Yeah. And is that how you kind of, your SOA request, whatever you want to call it, and how you ask your power planner to write your statements of advice for you? Is that the same thing? So drag and speak notes about whatever your strategy might be, or how are you dealing with that part?
The reason is that I hate the power planner request forms. I've gone through various iterations, and everyone I find intensely irritating. And so I just use Loom, open up the thing, and what I found is that because I didn't like the form and it would take me half an hour to fill it in or whatever it was, I was procrastinating. You leave, that form uncompleted, and you create a 3-day lag in your process. It's awful. And I broke it down and went, right, how long is it going to take me to do the recommendations around super? It's really simple. Click the go button on Loom. And I was like, hey, Joe, this is the overview of the plan. This is the client. These are the bits that I'm excited about. These are the bits that we're going to have to be careful of. Here's the fee structure. Like, that's it. It's a 2-minute video. And I just put the link in the email to her. The next one is, these are the super recommendations. And it's so quick because, I'll know what the supers get. Before your meeting's finished what your super recommendations are likely to be. They're going to be fairly close to the mark because you've been doing this for so long. And it takes me 2 minutes to tell somebody, what we want, what the alternatives were. That's really quick. And it's so different from a mindset point of view of, here are 5 1 to 2 minute videos on the recommendations rather than here's a 35 or 40 minute typed out form that I want to poke myself in the eye over.
Yeah, I've got to adopt that myself. It's one of the pain points just in my own advice process is do these meetings and finalize the fact find and all the rest of it, and then it's okay, bridging it from the thoughts that are in my head and the notes that I've made, bringing those two together for someone to pick it up and organise the SOA. So
you think about your skill set, and not just you and I, but as advisors in general, the skill set is sitting down and talking to people. Yes, there's the pointy-headed stuff around the technical side of things, but a big part of it is being able to sit and talk to people. And if you've got a verbal skill set or it's something that you enjoy, it's so much easier to talk through things than type out, even if it's, voice recognition software or whatever it is.
Yeah. And then, so you request your SOA. Is that the paraplanner? Is that someone that's internal with you? Or
Yes. Yeah. I tried the external piece, and what I found is that there was turnover. I also don't do SOAs, you sort of traditional SOAs anymore, and I have, for quite some time.
Yep.
And to get an external service to working with what I want, it was me getting up with them, and I don't go much in that, and I don't like the delay piece as well. And the delays are really important for me because it's a small business, and if I'm trying to compete with bigger, better resource businesses, I've got to be nimble and I've got to be quick.
Yeah.
Because if I write, everything's about short of that time frame for me. Because if I write 500 grand's worth of revenue and I'm doing it over 5 years, I'm going to go broke, and then I'm going to close the doors, and I'm going to have to find a job. But if I can have all those time frames down, if I can write 500 in 1 year, things look very different then.
Yeah.
So it's trying to cut out, all of the delays and get the advice in and done, efficiently.
You mentioned there doing SOAs a little bit differently. Can you talk about what you're doing there?
Yeah, so actually this comes back to like this podcast probably 4 odd years ago. And, I don't know the other guys involved in this literally through listening, but it was an interview that Andrew Rocks was doing. He said, we do some stuff differently in our business. One of the things that we ask our clients is, how do you want to be communicated with? Do you want a physical document? Do you want a text message, an email, an audio message? And I can remember I was driving home and it was just on dusk, and I went, oh, holy shit. I hadn't pulled over, got my phone out, and my phone's full of notes, but I went, that's brilliant. First, why haven't I thought about that? But the way that he articulated that was fantastic. And it's an idea, it's sort of at the core of how, we provide the advice, but it's at a different iteration. So, I'm looking at the stuff that intensely frustrates me, things like ROAs, but nobody reads that thing. I'm going to send you a 10-page document that's taken 3 days or 4 days to produce, and I've sent the request, and then I've checked it, and then I've stopped. So, and it was, his question was, how do you want to be communicated with? And shortly after that, Ben Nash was talking about, he said, when we bring new people on board, we've got this training manual, and we use this bit of software called Loom. We'll do screen recording, and then they've got a training log. And I went, well, I'd better do that. So I've done that. And then if I can use Ben's idea and Andrew's together, I can sort of hit a couple of issues at once. So particularly with things like ROAs, we started doing video ROAs probably 3.5 years ago. And, we've got to hit a couple of points from a compliance point of view, but it's a Word doc with like the button switches or whatever it is, whatever it changes. And, it's clicking the go button on Loom and saying to the client, hey, when we caught up these things that we spoke about, we'll remember that these were the changes that we're going to make. These are the consequences, CGT fees, whatever it is. And also we did the modelling, because we always did the modelling, and you can remember that we're shooting for retirement or whatever goal it is, and you're on track. And you don't need to do anything, but this video just summarises this. If you need anything, let me know. And the feedback from clients was really, really good, because I'd say to them, hey, do you want a 10-page document to talk about the switches. And they're like, no, I don't need that stuff. But the video, it's not uncommon for me to see somebody commenting on LIN, hey, Joe, I love this, great to have a reminder. So that was the first iteration. And I couldn't get the, I'm doing video SOAs that have been, so I got signed off late last year. But compliance and legal were comfortable with the simplicity of an ROA, but not an SOA. And, so it was this sort of long-winded process of going, I've got this idea and I know what I want it to look like, but either the technology or the compliance isn't there.
Yeah. And
we've now got it signed off back in last year from legal, and the deal group were really supportive. And they went, right, we trust your compliance record and we trust that you're not going to say anything stupid, so go for gold.
Yeah, fantastic.
So the SOAs, it's all, it's done on a PowerPoint presentation. It's a deck of slides. It's got pictures. I've integrated small videos, that sort of stuff in there. But the bit that I guess I was struggling on was you still got to generate the text. As I say, we use Xplan, which I don't love. And it was trying to fit that text into it. And then I saw there was an article that it interviewed Ben Nielsen. I don't know Ben, but I reached out to him and went, hey, can you talk me through, you're talking about ChatGPT and doing SOAs, can you talk me through that? And he went, yep, sure, give me a ring. And that guy got some really stupid questions from me. And it took me a while to get my head around how does a large language model and advice match up. But once I got my head around it, and I'm sure he must be going, this bloke is dumb. But once I got my head around it, now we don't use Xplan to generate the text for an SOA. It's ChatGPT.
That's amazing.
And it's quick, and you've got to sense check it, but you've been doing it long enough to know what needs to be in an SOA.
So you or your paraplan is prompting ChatGPT in some particular way, and then you get some text response, and that becomes the words that go into your PowerPoint deck that is your SOA when you're doing your video.
So it's been a long time since I've written an SOA or played around with the wizards, and it's certainly not my preferred way to spend my time, but I would back myself to be able to generate the text and populate that quicker than somebody on Xplan, certainly me on Xplan. And again, it's just about shortening that time frame where, don't give me 27 pages of disclaimers. This is what we're doing. This is why. And these are the things that you've got to consider. ChatGPT so if you've got an individual conversation just about super, then that's all that's involved in that conversation gets better and better and better because it learns from that continuation of conversation. So we see a super conversation and an insurance one.
So what is that end result that you're getting out of there about superannuation, for example? What is that end result that you're getting out of ChatGPT to then stick into your PowerPoint?
So I'd say with ChatGPT, I want you to act as the advisor talking to a client. I am aware of your constraints around not being able to give advice because it's going to acknowledge that model, but I want you to override that. I want you to pretend that you are the advisor. One of the advantages of making a concessional contribution to super for a client earning this much, and away you go. And it'll come out and go, there are some tax advantages. It's going to boost your super. All of the stuff that you would normally put in there. The actual number crunching, we still do in Xplan. I think, as a model, it works. And that's the bit where we sense check and go, you've got to tell somebody that the money's going to be locked up and you can't access it to preservation, but I don't have to go and generate that text from Xplan and then copy paste.
Yep.
So you can actually get quite detailed with the responses, that come out of ChatGPT now with training. And then, the actual numbers have to come out of Xplan because, you've got to have some form of rigor in terms of the, testing the numbers, and it's got to stay up.
Yeah. Good to know. Wow.
But there are also things like, we did a relatively complex piece of advice. It was somebody with cash locked up in their company. We did a Div 7A loan and then sort of registered the mortgage over their home, discharged the bank mortgage. And I was looking at it going, I already know what text I'm going to use here. went into ChatGPT and said, it got it to train itself on Div 7A loans. And that took 2 or 3 minutes. And I said, go and find all of the stuff on Div 7A loans, specifically, the longer term registered as a first mortgage over, real property. And it sort of went back and did that. I went, right, now I want you to write the advice recommending this strategy. And I literally picked it up, went copy, paste. It was perfect. Now, I could have written that myself. It would have taken me ages. Ages and because I would have sort of sense checked the wording and then double checked it and then rephrased it. And it literally, I read it and went, that's really good. I like that.
And you would have, I'm sure you would have been going to different websites, referencing, and like you would have been doing the learning yourself to then type it, but instead you've told the machine to go and do the learning and type it for you. Go, yeah, I like that one.
And if we need to, so I've got a Div 7A conversation in ChatGPT. So if I do another one of those strategies, even if it's, if you did the shorter 7-year term, I can go and subtly alter that conversation and go, we're now going to shift the focus from the long term to the short term. This is what we're looking at. And
can you save those conversations in ChatGPT?
They're all saved. So the only way to get rid of the conversation is to delete it. But you want to keep the conversation separate. So I wouldn't add any Div 7A stuff into a super conversation, and I wouldn't add super into insurance.
I haven't realised that. I've go in there and play around every now and then, but I hadn't realised that it was all saved there somewhere.
Yeah. So there's a menu on the left hand side, and we've actually got one called Super, and that's going back to Ben, because he's so to understand how smart the man is. But it was him talking me through. This is how we use it. Now he's obviously spent a lot of time doing it, not basically piggybacked off his guidance and initial research, but it's incredibly smart in terms of generating the sort of text that you probably want to put in there. Yeah. And it gets, it learns, over time.
Yeah, right. Well, Jono, thank you for your time today. I know you've got a meeting to get to. I've got other meetings to get to as well this afternoon. As I did when I spoke to you the first time, incredibly generous with your time. And even now, as we've been recording, we're getting close to an hour of recording this. So thank you for spending the time chatting with me. I've learned a lot. Hopefully anyone that's listening has done as well. Congratulations on what you've built in only 4 or 5 years. So you've done a tremendous job on your own. Well done, and lots of gold in there this episode. That's for sure.
I hope so. This podcast, without the podcast, my business would look very, very different, old school. And I'm quite excited about some of the stuff that we're doing, but a lot of it comes back to the people on here who, so free with their info and time and knowledge.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. I'll chat with you again soon.
Thanks very much.